Looks like a few more people are getting in, but we'll go ahead and get this started and do a little bit of introduction. So welcome everybody to this week's edition of Water Talks, where we are going to be talking about converting InfoSWM models to ICM swim models. Your host today is going to be myself, Hunter Sparks. I'm a systems engineer with InfoWorks. We have Mel Meng, who's here. He's a technical support engineer. And then we also have Robert Dickinson, who is the product sector leader for InfoWorks. And so whether you've been to one of these before or you haven't, just a little overview. The goal of Water Talks is really to create a community where you guys can come and ask any and all questions, and we'll provide answers, give advice, and offer insights. How this is going to work is we're going to kick off the session going over a demo on how you can convert an InfoSWM model and some of the fun features and functionalities, and then we'll open it up to all questions. As you can see in the GoToWebinar standard box, there is a place for you to enter your questions. So you can ask those at any times, and we'll try to get to those when we can. And then please register for some of our upcoming Water Talks and some of our other webinars. Next week, we're going to be discussing fire flow analysis in InfoWater Pro. And then we're going to have an InfoWorks fireside chat on Autodesk and licensing changes. And then AECOM and the City of Detroit are going to present their asset management solution. So we're going to have a customer case study, and that will take us to the end of the month. So we'll go ahead and kick this off. And the first thing I want to point to is if you go to our knowledge and help website under our knowledge base, you will see that we actually have a video on how to import InfoSWM to ICM. And also we have an article that walks through how to do this. So that's just a little preface if you guys need a little bit more information. And then we're just going to jump right into the live demo. So the first thing I am going to do is go ahead and open up ICM. And Mel, can you just confirm that you can see ICM now?
Yep.
Perfect. So the first thing that oops. Forgot that I was doing this earlier. So the first thing that you're going to want to do is create a new model group for this import to live in. And for this one, we're just going to call it import swim. And then by right-clicking and going to import swim, if you go to model group, you'll see you have a couple of different options. You can do swim 5, XP swim, XP storm, and for this one, we're going to go ahead and look at bringing in an InfoSWM model. So this is going to open a new panel where you can direct yourself to where your model is. So we're going to go ahead and open this model that is called Greenville. As you can see, it's an ArcGIS file. We're going to give that a little bit of time to run, and then you'll want to select which scenario that you want to bring in. For this example, we're going to bring in the 1D only scenario. So it's importing the IMP file, some files, and it's going to come up if you have any errors bringing in your model, then it is going to come up with an error log. I'm going to go ahead and copy these out because we are going to be referring to them throughout the beginning of this presentation, and that way I'm able to close that tab. So I'm going to go ahead and just create a Microsoft Word file. And so as you can see now, we have brought in the different errors that we're running into. So we're going to look at a couple of these, starting with the first two. As you can see, we're unable to convert, and it's got these asterisks where the weirs are. So we're going to go ahead and open the INP file in Notepad. And as you can see, this has all of the data that lives within your swim model, and we're going to go ahead and try and find the weir. Oops. And so as we can see, when we come down to the weir, we have the different information that's being brought in, and it's very much in a database. format. And as we can see at the end, we have those asterisks that it was reading. And what's going on here is the blank spaces that are in your database where you haven't put in information are just being brought in as asterisks. So even though it may look like an error, this is just a blank space and it's nothing that is actually going to affect your model. So that's looking at the first groupings. And then we're going to go ahead and actually take a look at our model so that we can see what's going on with some of these cross sections for 1307 and so on, how they have an older predefined shape or size. And so if we go into the links window and we sort by shape, we can see that those link IDs tie to these vertical ellipse pipe. And so if we go ahead and open these up, as we can see, they were come in as custom, and it's given a conduit height, but not a width or the span. So what's happening here is in InfoSWM, the span is predefined for those standard heights. But with ICM, it did not translate to bringing those in. So it's simply having to look up what the span that ties to these different heights. In this case, all of them are 72 inch. So we are just going to update them to 45 and a half. And so that should fix that error code. So as we can see for the next grouping of them, we have inflows for different junctions, and we have some selection import fails for profiles and some outfall. And to see what's going on here, we're going to go ahead and actually open up the model in ArcMap. And so we're going to go ahead and open this model. And we'll just give that a second to load. And then we can go ahead and initialize InfoSWM. And we are going to take a look at, we'll go ahead and look at this first junction, which is junction 114, to see what's going on. So as we can see, looks pretty normal here, and we're going to go ahead and go to the the node inflow editor. And as we can see, if we go to the external tab, blank, and as we can see down here, that if anything is left blank, the value is 0. For the baseline pattern is left blank, the value is 1.0. However, in the scale factor, instead of 1.0, it is showing as 1. So what's going on here, as opposed to being written as 1.0, since it's just a 1, this is reading that they don't have a matching time series because, you know, a default value was actually changed. Instead of being 1, in our case, it's 1 instead of 1.0. So it's reading it as an error, but in reality, it's the same as the default value, so it's not going to, shouldn't cause any issues with your modeling. And so that kind of applies to the rest of the errors, as well as these others where you have some import fails as far as outfalls or different time series being empty. And then as we can see, it was completed. And so we no longer need this. So we're going to go ahead and go back to ICM and go back to the master database. And really the next thing that we're going to want to do is we're going to want to validate our model to see, now that it's been brought in, if there are any issues that it is going to run into when we try and run this model. So I'm going to go ahead and run validation. And as we can see, there are a list of warnings and some errors that pop up. So we're just going to want to go through these and make sure that anything that needs to be updated to successfully run your model has the ability to do so, and try and explain some of these other warnings that we are running into. So the first one that we're going to open up, the first two really apply to junction 156. And as we can see, what's going on here is the max depth, or the initial water depth, is actually larger than the max depth, which of course cannot happen. And what it appears to be happening here is, with this area being a 2D InfoSWM model, which is no longer supported, it's coming in with some funny values. So with just a quick, easy fix, just updating the initial depth to match the max depth, that will go ahead and get it so that that error is taken care of. And so the next collection of them, as you can see, is talking about how the max depth will be adjusted to match the top of the highest connecting conduit. And this is just a report of just some funny math, a little bit of math in the background, being a little off. At the storage nodes where the curves, it'll be much more important to look at those nodes. But as you can see here, these are just standard nodes, and so they are just going to be updated to match that level. And then as you go down, once you get past the max depth loads, as you can see here, we're running into some bank offsets that are reading as errors. So we're going to go ahead and look at these. And what's going on here is, as we can see, let's go to this one. As we can see, the left bank offset is 15 and the right bank offset is 150. So if we go ahead and we open the profile, what we're seeing is, although it is the 15 is in between these values, and the 150 is also in between these two values, there's not an exact reading elevation for those offsets, which is giving you a warning saying that it's not in there. But what it will do is actually interpolate to use the in-between values, so that warning is just letting you know there's not an exact value if you wanted to put one in. And so now we've actually looked at all of the errors from the validation that we're looking at. So if we go ahead and close these tabs and go back to our master database, we can validate again, just to make sure nothing else comes up. As we said, this is just letting us know what's going on. They're not going to affect your model. And we can go ahead and commit those changes to the master database. And we're going to go ahead and rename that import of the swim model. Okay, and then of course, the next thing that we would want to do is go ahead and run an analysis using that model. So if we open the Run tab, as we can see, it's populated the information. And if we go to the time step control, as we see here, we want to update this so that we're running a 2-hour analysis. And then we're going to want to make sure that we are updating to the latest network. And now it is going to go ahead and let us run our simulation. And as we can see on the job control, we were able to run that simulation successfully. So as you can see, with just a few steps, you're able to bring in that InfoSWM model into ICM, do a little bit of cleanup, and then you have the ability to run a simulation with your model. An additional workflow that can also be done, because we did this with one scenario, is we have come up with a workflow to where you can import multiple scenarios, and some of our support team would be more than happy to talk through some of those steps. And so that was the portion of the live demo. So I'm going to go ahead and switch on back to the presentation just to finish out with some additional information. And as you can see here, there are some potential hiccups that you want to look for when importing your model from InfoSWM. When you're importing your InfoWorks ICM network, it is easy to switch the InfoSWM network to, or the ICM SWM network to an ICM native network. Then as mentioned, you have the ability to bring in all your different scenarios. This can be done one-on-one as we've shown today, or we have developed a workflow to bring them into one model. And then, of course, just like anything, it is important to note that every model is different, and today was just an example of a workflow to bring it in. But things can come up while you're importing from one program to another. So it is always important to go through these steps to ensure everything comes in and ensure that you take the extra steps validating your model to ensure that your model is running correctly. And then we have a couple helpful videos, some on our YouTube channel, and then we did a previous water talk where you're using ICM as a database to store swim models, and both of these were conducted by Nathan Gertz, who does a good job describing some of these processes. And so with that, we've gotten to the end of the presentation, and I know we've left a lot of time excuse me, for questions. So please go ahead and put those in the chat. We'd be more than happy to answer.
Yeah, here. Yeah, just to mention that in the chat window, Bob just mentioned that the Swim 5 engine just uses the closest left and right over bank values when you define, your left or right over banks.
Yep. And that's a good note for some of those errors that were or warnings that were coming in. Are you seeing this question, Mel, about any cautions on RTC?
Yeah, I'll pass that one. I'm looking at another question. So is there a difference between errors and warnings similar to XP? So I'll take this one. Yeah, so yes, as the name implies, errors are the thing that if you have it, the model won't run. And warnings is just like checks. So if the values are out of range or with unusual values, the model will still run. But just want to point it out so that it's not an error. And so that's one of the powerful things in ICM. You can use the default ones, or if you have anything specific to your own needs, you can customize it for the errors and warnings.
Yeah, that's a really good thing to point out, the difference between the two. And so, yeah, feel free to, we've blocked off a lot of time. These usually run an hour sometimes. Sometimes on some of these topics, they are a little bit shorter, but we're here. So please, throw some questions in the chat. We'd be more than happy to chat about them. Okay, and we got Another one that just came in. If someone is using PC-SWM 2D model, how can you import that model? Use the InfoWorks ICM 2D mesh, then export the 1D portion of the SWM model to be used in PC-SWM.
Yeah, I can try to take answer this question. So I'm not too sure exactly what you're trying to do, but but just based on the questions, one thing I want to point out is like InfoSWM or InfoWorks swim network. They are pretty much is compatible. They're all based on the same SWM 5 engine, and they all understand the SWM 5 input file. So you can pretty much think about it. There's no translation there. So PC Swim will use the input file. Your InfoWorks, the Swim 5 network, also understand the input file, just as Hunter demonstrated. It's a very straightforward process. You just basically open your input file, and if ICM notices something doesn't look right, and it will let you know what is not working, what is wrong, or anything. So, just I might not understand the question very clearly, but there is no conversion for that part. But I think I understand that PC Swim 2D actually is a 1D model essentially. So because of that, I don't think we have any plans to make it compatible with that part. So I'll be probably it won't work. That's my initial guess, because we didn't add that feature to our products to be able to understand which part is 2D, which part is 1D.
Well, it'll import the 1D section, and since the 2D mesh in PC Swim is just a section, just connecting 1D elements, you just redo that in ICM or ICM Swim with a DEM and make a real mesh. So yes, we do import the PC Swim model since it's basically Swim 5, but we don't import their extra 1D elements, which is their 2D quasi 2D mesh. So the answer is yes and no, I guess. Oh, and also the question about the real-time control. I just tried that, and I made a mistake in the controls, and it didn't find it, but it did find it when I tried to solve it. So that's not so great, but the engine does find the rule changes, the rule fixes, rather.
And so we have another one. What would be the best way to import / convert a Mike Urban model into InfoWorks ICM?
Okay, I'll answer that. I've converted about 20 to 25 models over the last 15 years. And what you do is you could, in Mike Urban, you export an MEX file or a UDF file or an HDL file, which is basically a text file with the subcatchments, the links to nodes. And there's direct, if you go to ICM and go to network, you'll see that there's a direct import of the Mike Urban MEX or HDL. So it just comes in really cleanly. And in the help file, there's like pages and pages of how it's mapped to ICM data. So that's a good feature of ICM. It imports it directly. You don't have to do anything really special.
Yeah, just a few things I would like to add is, for those who might not be very familiar with the ICM platform, I just want to clarify a few things. The ICM platform, supports two types of engines. One is the ICM engine. So that's the typical when we talk about ICM. Most people will refer to the ICM engine. In the recent years, we also added support for the SWM 5 engine. So that's what Hunter demonstrated. So when we're talking about import into ICM, really we're talking about importing the SWM5 as a SWM model in ICM. It's not importing a SWM model as a ICM engine model. So there's a pretty big difference there. The nice thing about importing a SWM5 model into ICM SWM5 network is it's the same engine. So you're just using a different platform to do the same model. So there, as far as the results goes, and all these things, there will be very little conversion really needed. You're not converting a model to a different to a different engine. It's just it's the same engine. I want to make sure everyone aware of those.
That's a really good thing to point out. It's a good add. Looks like we've got a couple more questions coming in. Is there an established workflow for importing Autodesk Civil 3D storm sewer networks into an ICM model? For example, if the transportation team is creating a proposed storm sewer network, can I easily import that pipe? Type, elevation, and all into InfoWorks?
Was the question just about SSA or about Civil 3D in general?
This looks like Civil 3D storm sewer networks, so from Civil 3D.
Okay, you would have to, if you go to ICM, there's a really good open data import center. It basically imports all of GIS data, shapefiles, geodatabases. So you'd have to do it that way. You'd have to export from Civil 3D and then import it that way.
Yeah.
If you're talking about Autodesk SSA, you can export a SSA to a SWM5 file and then import that into ICM. So that's cleaner.
Yeah. So for this one, I have to get back to you later because in XP-SWM, the Civil 3D native network objects are also most of these are supported. For example, if you have sewer network, if you have surfaces, and if you save those as a land XML, so you have to save those as a land XML. So these are natively supported. So then in XP-SWM, I know when you import, the surface will be converted to a DTM, and your manholes, pipes will be automatically converted to manholes and pipes. I'll double check to see if that feature also is available in ICM. But I wouldn't be surprised, if because the code base can be easily shared. ICM supports for XML.
Great. Got another one here asking, has the RiskMaster InfoWorks ICM tool been updated to use with SWM models? Can you list which ICM suite tools that are compatible with SWM models?
Okay, well,
sorry.
I'll get back to you for that, but basically all of the tools of ICM output results, like the worst case grid, all of those work the same with the ICM SWM networks. That probably doesn't answer the question, but all of the output of basically the ICM SWM network makes an IWR file, which you'll find in your results folder on your computer. And that's basically really similar to the ICM results files. So all the output tools are usable between both networks.
Perfect. Mel, anything to add?
No, I don't have too much right on that one. Yeah, just we'll get back to you guys with a more detailed list on what features are available or not available. A side-by-side comparison of ICM network and SWM5 network.
Perfect, and I think this could be really kind of a good general question as people are getting more used to ICM, but wondering where the best place where they can find information about the benefits of InfoWorks ICM over other modeling softwares.
Yeah, I can. I can share a little bit of what I know. for my job here at Innovyze, the product I support is more on the stormwater side. I do a lot of XP-SWM and also ICM on the 2D side. I would say just in general, from technology standpoint, ICM is more advanced than XP-SWM, just purely from a software engineering perspective. So you in general use a more advanced or more modern type of libraries, tools, and all these things. So that's a consideration. So it's basically probably it will have a nicer, more user-friendly interface, but that's more of a personal taste. So the software will look very different, and the way they operate. That's one thing. Another thing, I would point out is it really scale matters. So if you are working on models for a city, or even for a watershed, so we're talking about very big models, ICM is much better a platform. It has a lot of the actual tools and technology incorporated to support this type of modeling. And for XP-SWM, it can be used for these bigger models. No problem for that. But if you really look at how the model, the platform evolves, and who are the major customers we're serving, it's more for like fairly small size of models. All the tools are really built for when you can point and click, rather than have a more sophisticated database management type of approach to your modeling. So those are just some of the bigger things. But as far as I can tell, they're all great tools, and either one will get your job done. A lot of things really depending on if I have to have this kind of advanced IT or collaboration need, and then ICM is the platform to go, and then XP-SWM does show some of the age of the some of the technologies underpinning how the software works.
And I would just add to that, if you are looking for information on the product so you can do some comparing, our website is a good place to start. You can look up the product and it'll have brochures, blog posts, different informations about each product, as well as our help files online. I know people will find those beneficial to look at, to just get a little bit more information on the product. And then of course we're always open to having the discussion. And it looks like Bob just let us know that RiskMaster should work with ICM SWM 2D. Let's see, what else do we have? I don't know, Mel, if you would want to take this one about what are some of the reasons you would use InfoSWM over storm and sewer analysis. Does it come down to level of comfort between the two, or just want to handle more information or more friendly, etc.?
Okay. Yeah, I'm not that familiar with SSA, but I have some idea, of that. So from my own perspective, as I said before, it's kind of like a XP-SWM with ICM. It mainly depends on our application. So SSA, the typical use case is you're a transportation engineer and you're designing a road, and then you need to lay some of the drainage pipes. It's very simple calculations, nothing complicated about that. And in those cases you use something like SSA. So they're more like design software. It's not sophisticated or complicated. And while for InfoSWM and ICM, so those we call those like simulation software. So when you think about these things, you think about simulation, not design. So you really want to know what happens. You want to know this very big system, and the way the water flows through them is very complicated. If you think about it, you don't know what really happens. So you need something more advanced, to help you to visualize, to see, how the system actually come together and works. And in those cases, InfoSWM and the ICM is much better a platform. And you can see, not only you're managing much bigger data set, and also the kind of analysis you need to do is kind of also more challenging to do without a proper tool. So I know that would be my guess. If you think about SSA or InfoSWM, really it's application dictates what kind of tools you will need. If you have a rather simple application, you don't need these are more sophisticated tools to do the job.
It's a great great breakdown. And then I'll go ahead and read this one, and we also have the answer, just asking about an advisor working on a series of training videos to work with swim models within InfoWorks ICM, asking about the timeline of those training videos being available and where they would be located. And then, as Bob pointed out, the training videos are being worked on for release at the end of the month, and they'll mainly be on our portal, YouTube, and the Autodesk forum.
Yeah, I can get back to you guys later. I know, our support team is working on it, but I don't have the details now.
Okay, we're not really. There's a question about InfoSWM over SSA. No, we're not really talking about InfoSWM here. We're talking about InfoSWM to ICM swim networks. From my point of view, one big advantage of the ICM swim networks, which is actually shares the InfoSWM engine over SSA, is that it uses the current EPA SWM 5 engine, which is 5.1.015. So it has a lot of features that SSA doesn't have for swim modeling anyway. And it also has 2D, so the ICM swim network uses the actual ICM 2D meshing and the 2D engine. And it has obviously all the tools, the output tools of ICM.
That's great additional information, Bob.
Yeah, I'll answer the next question. So can ICM Live do forecasting, i.e. could weather models be input into ICM to predict the future behaviors of a systems? So the answer is yes. So ICM Live is a product particularly designed to enable something like that. However, for the forecast, so for now, the most common type of application is it is driven by weather forecast, and usually these weather forecast is from the government agencies like NOAA. So if you have that kind of data, like you said, 3 to 5 days, if you have the forecast for 3 to 5 days, then you can use that forecast rainfall to drive the model. So it really, you need to review what is really available to you, because some of the things, is, cannot be done with the software. Someone else have to work on it. But the good news is, in the vast majority of the United States, we have pretty good radar rainfall coverage. So that's just near real time. Every 10 minutes you will get the refresh of the radar rainfall, and in general is something called the HRRR, is the next 18-hour forecast. So that's usually is widely available. But I'm not too sure about 3 to 5 days. We might need to do some research to see if you're talking about that kind of range, and where the data will be available.
These are all really great questions, so please feel free to keep them coming. Okay, well, just just in case that is the last one, thank you everyone for attending. Mel, thank you, and Bob, thank you as well for sitting on and providing some really good insight and answer to those questions and additional details. We've provided our emails here, so if anything does come up afterwards and you have additional questions and you would like to discuss further, please just feel free to reach out. We'd be happy to have that conversation. So thank you, everybody.
Yeah, thank you very much. Bye.